It's Wednesday, January the 19th here at the Tribune, and this is our weekly podcast. And this is John McAteer and Eamon McFadden today, and we're looking across the pages of the paper and indeed the national headlines over the past week. And the one thing that has touched everybody's mind and everybody's heart is the murder of young school teacher Aisling Murphy out for a run on the canal walk at Tullamore just this day last week. The vigils, the outpouring of grief, sorrow, sympathy and absolute shock and indeed fear. You're hearing a lot of stories that young women are afraid to go out walking early in the morning or late in the evening. It's quite evident that Ireland does not have the same level of protection that men do have.
Yeah, I think that's something that's repeated over because there's been some high profile incidences in England and various other places in other big cities like Dublin, but to happen in a place like Tullamore, which you wouldn't see as a big urban centre really, but it just shows you this maybe the nature of this changing. Is it a trend that we're seeing, John?
It was broad daylight. I think it's not actually a trend. I think the trend has been there for quite a while. Violence against women. I mean, ever since those vigils at the weekend, numbers of girls and women have gone on record of driving home from vigils to be approached in a car or cars or to be followed by men. You'd almost think that we have no legislation in this country, yet in February 2017 the then Justice Minister Charlie Flanagan brought in new legislation which was called the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence, and now we have Helen McEntee going to bring in much stronger legislation. Obviously there's a huge need, a huge demand for that there. It's going to be a four-pronged effort to try and confront the whole issue and deal with it, because women have every right to be protected the same as everybody else, and obviously that is not happening. I mean, some of the main speakers and some of the main leaders of women's movements standing in Dublin at various meetings on last Friday and Saturday were just uttering the same words. We stood here 40 years ago. Yeah. We made our views known, yet nothing has happened in the meantime. Probably things have got much worse. So, is anybody listening? You saw the huge demonstration outside the Dáil, and you saw Michael Martin and the various politicians there offering their deepest sympathy, and that's all important. So was the funeral yesterday. It was absolutely an amazing outpouring of grief and sympathy for the family. But it's only the legislators, by their words and their actions, can do anything at all about this. I mean, I had a discussion with a politician about this earlier on this week, and I was just emphasising the fact that we don't have half enough Gardaí in the country, and we don't have half enough legislation or protection. We don't have half enough prisons. And he just turned to me and he said, "Look, John, if you had a guard at every street corner, these things would happen." But you see, this is the mindset that has left the country where it now is at. As long as you have that mindset, then nothing is ever going to happen. Yeah. Because you have to have education, you have to have protection, you have to have you have to have prisons. You have to have a prison system of sentencing, and indeed of retaining prisoners in prison. I mean, I don't know when we've got a new prison in Ireland, yet our population has grown probably to over 5 million right now. But I mean, I'm just hearing from all sources about young women now being afraid to go out running on their own, or go out exercising, or even to walk home at night. And there's not much you can say about that, because there's no.
I was chatting to someone recently, a woman, and she was saying that if you probably speak to most adult women, most of them will have had some type of experience of some type of harassment from an unknown member to them, be it's saying something, following them, been over familiar with them on a night out. Yeah, and this is there's not a woman out there that wouldn't tell you a story like that of some kind, and that's it has to be explored too, I know.
I suppose what has to be explored now, maybe more than anything else, women do not have a strong enough voice in Leinster House in the Dáil. We have a very small percentage of women in there.
The same on local authorities.
It's the same right across the whole political situation in this country, and there's no rush or no demand, indeed there is no huge urgency to increase the number of women that should serve in the Dáil particularly, which is the seat of power. And Helen McEntee is probably a very, very good Minister for Justice, but she would need a huge amount of support and backing. of our male counterparts. Now, to say that we don't have legislation to protect women and all that kind of thing is wrong, because there is legislation there.
Yeah.
The fact is that it's not being implemented because we don't have the necessary we don't have the necessary investment in the services. We don't have the necessary investments in education, or indeed in providing the kind of protection and providing the kind of mindset that you run the risk of if you're seen misbehaving towards a female, you run the risk of ending up in prison. And until we get that into our heads very, very clearly, then unfortunately this may not be the last murder of its kind. We would like to think, please God,
I think it was the random nature of this one that has really shocked a lot of people. A bit of echoes of that Sarah Everard, who was murdered by that policeman in an absolutely heinous crime over England, where the absolute stiffest punishment I think that can be handed out was handed out, but that's such a callous thing to happen in an area where somebody would be out, very familiar, very safe, very comfortable to do that. It was 4 o'clock. We're not even into the dark part of the evening.
Ashling Murphy would have been 100% secure in her own mind that there were going to be no issues. Why should there be? I mean, it's broad daylight on a towpath in Tullamore.
Yeah, an active, busy part of town.
Active, busy part of town. Others out there as well. Somebody else apparently had been followed 2 hours earlier. But, we now await how the Dáil is going to address this. But if there's a will to do something, a way has to be found, and that has to be funded. Money is not an issue here. The protection of women and their rights, let it be in the home, let it be in crowds, or just let it be in what happened in Tullamore. Yeah. Until women are assured that they are protected, that the crimes committed will diminish, and that the punishment being meted out will help to diminish the possibility of women being attacked.
Yeah.
But I would be of the strong view that we just simply do not have Gardaí out there in any large numbers. There's no great visible presence of Gardaí, and that's not a condemnation of them, given there's 14,000 officers nowadays. But it's not enough. There's nowhere near enough. Garda commissioners over the years will always step out with the same mantra, I'm satisfied that we have sufficient numbers in the force. I think the basic reality is much further away from the truth than that,
Yeah,
we are in a position now in 2022 where the country can afford to do these things. Something that we can't afford women the protection that they're legally entitled to and constitutionally entitled to, then something's very seriously wrong. But having said all that, we'll just look then at easing COVID restrictions, very much on the cards. Are we rushing headlong into this because we have the rugby, the Six Nations rugby coming up, because we have a match in Dublin against Wales on the 4th of February.
They're looking for it, and they were saying that they would need 100% capacity for that to be a success, because we've been our nearest sort of neighbours, that they would be huge numbers.
If they're going to have 100% capacity, they're looking at, I think it's 51,700 or thereabouts, which is a huge number of people. Like, we're going from 5,000 in the space of a couple of short weeks, like a lightning flash, up to 51,000. It's a tenfold increase.
Yeah,
I don't know if the country's ready for that, because just looking on this Wednesday evening at the COVID figures, we're still over 12,000 infections, and I mean, just out and about, you're hearing almost every day some new family, somebody that you probably know in isolation, and it's always said that COVID is a lot closer to your door than you actually realise, and I think that's actually true.
Yeah.
But we are easing the restrictions, I suppose. The Taoiseach has said that he wants to see almost all of the restrictions gone by the 31st of March. And I suppose that is probably a realistic target, but that's quite a long way off yet.
Yeah, you have to get ready for that sort of Easter push, you see, because that'll be coming, even if whether that's staycation or if things have opened up enough more.
The first big push is going to be this new bank holiday. This St. Patrick's Day is not Thursday, and then you have the Friday as the new bank holiday this year. So you have 4 days off there. You literally will see a fairly big push to have most restrictions gone by that point,
Well, the figures you would think will be pointing in the direction where they will be down, or whether they'll be at a sufficient level is hard to say. But
the other thing we don't, the World Health Organization keeps emphasising that the pandemic is nowhere near over. and we don't know if there's going to be new variants that will develop. But we have a habit of rushing with the populist point of view, open up the country, let it rock, let it roll. We've done that before. Maybe we're at a point now when it's going to be safer to do so. Maybe we feel a bit more assured that given that Omicron has not been that serious an illness in itself, maybe we are reaching that breaking point where the worst of it is over.
Yeah.
But only time will tell that.
Yeah.
But after all that, we're just looking at heading into the early spring. Countries tied down for 2 full years. Business are just on the floor. Hospitality sector, premises locked down, hotels closed up. It can't go on like that. You can't go on running a country like that. But at least staff on the front line are guaranteed a €1,000 tax-free bonus. That's been announced today. That's the least. Well, like it is. I think it is. It's greater than what's been offered in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And it'll be very, very welcome. You can never repay staff for the work that they did over the last 2 years. Too many of them lost their lives as well.
A heroic effort.
Heroic effort, and fair play to them. It's worth recognising that without them, we would not be where we now are. I suppose the other big issue that's running across here as well as the UK is the partying that went on behind the scenes at official circles like Downing Street and the one at Ivy House in Dublin, which came back up on the dial again today. Our politicians are kind of loath to comment very much on what went on at Downing Street, and if Boris Johnson can hold on to it. He has a very slim grip on power at the moment.
It's a matter of when he'll go rather than if he'll go.
It's looking very much like that. They're getting the number of letters built up. I think it's 54 that's needed to put down a vote of no confidence calling for his resignation. And possibly when that's come. But the issue of the Ivy House party a year last August, was it, when we got our seat on the United Nations, that keeps coming up. The minister has, Simon Coveney's the Minister for Foreign Affairs, it was his department. As Paul Murphy said there today, that instead of getting a visit from the guards, they got a visit from their minister instead. The issue was raised by Father Tobin in the Dáil, and he was accusing, or he was asking the minister to come clean in relation to the Sinn Féin party and to give a full account of it. We haven't got that.
Yeah.
We know that he was there at some stage that night. It's probably certain that he didn't participate in a party. Now, when he knew it was going on or what he did about it, that's where the grey area is. But
it wasn't an event in isolation in that sort of sense that we had Golfgate. We had, what was the other one? The Marion Hotel, the Marion Gate, which obviously the same thing about Catherine Zappone. She still hasn't come out and explained what that was about, and we'll never hear it at this stage.
We'll never hear, but what we don't know is what.
But we have serving government ministers here now.
Was that the tip of the iceberg? We don't know. But we're going to move on to the actual paper. You're going to take a look at a Hall of Fame award for a legendary athletic figure. Yeah,
legendary athletic figure indeed. There's not many people wouldn't know the name Eamon Giles, and if they hear it, they'll link it with Cranford Athletics Club straight away. And he has been duly honoured this year as well with the Donegal Sports Star Awards, when he will become the 46th inductee into the Hall of Fame, which would be deemed a very fitting recognition for all that he has done for athletics here over the years. Been one of the man behind the formation of one of the very first athletic clubs in County Donegal, formed back in the heady days of December 1961.
It's a long way back, isn't it?
It's a fair way back, that. And
small rural area.
Yeah, and you think of how many people have kind of come through that to compete at all sorts of high levels, and the development that has gone with it. I think that's going to be deemed a very appropriate one. And you think of the thousands of people really that have probably gone through wearing the white vest with the red stripe through it over the years. Very iconic figure. You'd see it in the papers and over the years.
Many of the cold Sunday, summer or winter's evening I spent out photographing them.
Tripping up and down roads and back roads
and back roads and mucky conditions, cross fields and cross country and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just like at the same time, just referencing Eamon Giles, Patsy, what do you call him in Ballybuffet?
Patsy McGonigal.
Patsy McGonigal has been the subject of a brand new book which has been written in conjunction with
The Finn.
Yeah,
It's effectively the history of the Finn Valley Athletics Club,
yes.
penned by Chris McNulty.
Chris McNulty's. That's the second one now that Chris has been involved in.
Yeah, he has Patsy's memoirs written already
Yeah.
with him. But yeah, it'll be a big interest to all.
We're going to take a look at the Eddie Fullerton investigation here into collusion, and this, according to Paddy McLaughlin, is a damning vindication of collusion in the Fullerton murder back in 1991. After serving 12 years in politics, he was aged 56. Eddie had become a legendary figure in Donegal politics.
Yes.
I knew him very, very well long before he became on the council, and he had come back from working in England with his family. He was from Slitherin outside Buncrana. Yet nobody has ever been found guilty or charged with his. He was murdered. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely, he was
the latest
cold-blooded.
occasion that the family was seeking vindication that collusion was involved here. The ombudsman for the police in Northern Ireland, Marie Anderson, has concurred with that, but she has also said that her investigation found no evidence that the RUC had any prior knowledge of these attacks. There were a number of murders going on at that point, all within a specific area in the northwest of Ireland. Eddie Fullerton, Gerard Casey, Patrick Shannon, Thomas Donaghy, Bernard O'Hagan, Daniel Cassidy and Michael Carey, and the attempted murders of two more, Patrick McErlane and James McCarston. This all happened between 89 and 93, it's a 4-year period. And then she also took into consideration the murders of Karen Thompson, Stephen Mullen, Mario Duddy, Joseph McDermott, James Moore, John Moyne, John Burns and Victor Montgomery. And it has taken the family a fair bit down the road. At this point, they have to consider where they go next. Is there a legal route, or at what point? I don't think the family will ever give up on that there, but at what
lifetime
point,
mission, really.
Yeah.
But where do they go, as you say, John?
Yeah,
like that's
where do they go with this? I don't have any answers to that there. I've met with the Fullerton family on numbers of occasions. I was down at that unveiling of the memorial at the Stone Jug in June 2011 there. And the process of getting this report from the police ombudsman has been a process of 14 years. It's a long 14 years. So the family will decide now in talking with others, and they'll also look at what the courses of action, what lines of action are available to them legally or through the European Court of Justice or whatever. But we wish them well with that one there, because it's been a long wait.
Yeah.
We want to look at a couple of other things before we go. The death of Jim Deedy and Russell Mullen.
Jim, it doesn't feel like it was that long that we actually had a lovely feature on with a chat with Jim for the Tirconaill Tribune.
That's right.
And he was 90 years of age, and I'll tell you, he was sharp as a tack and hale and hearty. But sadly, he has passed away. He passed away at his home there, and a name synonymous, John, with the hotel industry, but also like his hometown of Rathmullen, an iconic figure for the place. He wholeheartedly, with the business with the Pier Hotel, his family were steeped in that tradition, and he
it was a huge business.
Massive.
It was a massive business. I mean, Rathmullen had numbers of hotels and eating houses, but that
was the hub of a lot
Pier
of
Hotel
activity there.
was the iconic one that everybody wanted to go to. Let it be Jack Lynch to open the Tope Festival in '69, or Derek Davis was a regular visitor there at the height of his career in RTE. And I never recall going to the Pier Hotel to any function that it wasn't packed to the door.
Yeah.
And the food was absolutely out on its own.
Yeah.
And Jim, he had a great staff about him. His own wife Anne, whom we sympathised with, and indeed the family on this occasion. Jim was a living legend during his career in Rathmullen for those years.
Yeah.
And his passing is deeply mourned. We're going to take a look at our lead story. We're also reporting there on the potential candidate for Fine Gael to fill the seat of the late Councillor Bernard McGuinness. And our main story today, Fan Great Arch is to reopen to public access, and this is the construction of a brand new pathway leading to the picturesque Great Arch in Lochswilly is is now ongoing. It's to be completed for the Easter season. It's been carried out by Donegal County Council, and it brings to an end a very turbulent period down there when access to it was denied since June of 2017. Just 4 and a half years ago, is it?
Yeah.
But the funding's been put in place. A deal has been brokered there. The new pathway is a much more direct route. It'll be a much more easy. It'll be much more.
That's a great
easy.
development.
It's a fantastic development out in the Farne Peninsula because
It needs it.
It needs it. It needs a lot more than that. But like
As a start.
that there's a pivotal one because the lockdown of that came at a time when the lighthouse was promoting the Great Arch as part of its appeal.
Yeah.
But now they're going to have that back again from Easter time. So we wish them well with that. And from all of us at the Tribune for this week, thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.